My name is Kelly.
And my name is Will.
We are two Florida attorneys
Who love our 5 dogs.
and 2 cats.
And love listening to true crime.
Mainly me.
So I hope you enjoy our show as we delve into all things spooky.
This is For Crime's Sake. Happy Monday. And we have Lacey with us today in the studio. And we posted a picture of Lacey on our website, forcrimesake.com, and our social media.
So, Kelly, what is on the docket this week?
I am really hoping to get some beach time in. Get a nice book, do some reading on the beach. It's seriously one of my favorite things to do, to relax. And we bought this puppy play mat for the water pad, I guess what you would call it. So hopefully we can bring the dogs outside in the backyard and let them run around and enjoy that.
Yeah, hopefully. That'll be a lot of fun.
I foresee a couple of them, I'm not going to mention any names, being very scared. Lydia.
And maybe Winston.
Winston might be scared at first when he sees the water coming out of it, but he will love it after that. He will be so happy. What about you, Will?
Well, as I mentioned last week, I was hoping to get some time to work in my yard, and I did, and I've put together a pretty nice landscaping, I think.
It looks awesome.
Thank you. I'm pretty proud of it, and so I'm looking forward this week to maybe grilling out a little bit, having dinner back there, and just getting to enjoy that space a little bit.
Sounds good to me. Sources for this episode include thecut.com, NBCnews.com, NewYorkTimes.com, and People.com. So this case is very recent, just last October, actually. So on October 28th, 2022, Shanquella Robinson, who was from Charlotte, North Carolina, arrived in San Jose del Cabo, a resort city on the southern tip of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula.
And was that just like for a vacation? Was she just chilling?
Yeah, Shanquella and 6 of her friends were going on a vacation. And Shanquella was 25 years old, and we posted a picture of Shanquella on our website and our social media. So the group she was traveling with consisted of 4 women, including Shanquella, and 3 men. They are Khalil Cook, Malik Dyer, Winter Donovan, Elise Hyatt, Dejanay Jackson, and Nazir Wiggins. From what I understand, she was good friends with Khalil Cook, and, some of the others were more acquaintance than, I would say, good friend.
Well, and I guess it's encouraging so far to see that they're going to Mexico, but they're going in a big group. So I would think there's some safety in numbers, right?
Yes, and they had rented a luxury house to stay in. And it was going to be a nice break for Shanquella, who was, by all accounts, a hard worker. She had founded a clothing line and was a hairstylist and had a big social media following and was pretty big into that. So Shanquella spoke with her mother, Salamandra, on October 28th, right after she had arrived. And Salamandra remembers her daughter as seeming very happy. And, she ended the conversation with her basically just telling her, hey, enjoy yourself. And, that she loved her and told her she loved her. Unfortunately, this would be the last time she ever spoke with her daughter.
That's so sad.
On October 29th, so the next day, someone in the group called a doctor to come give medical help to Shanquella. They said that she wasn't feeling well. And this was around 2:13 in the afternoon.
I'm going to guess, though, that if they felt the need to call a doctor in a foreign country, that she was probably a little more than not feeling well.
Yes, and actually around the same time as that they called the doctor, the group also called Salamandra to tell her that Shanquella wasn't doing well due to drinking too much, and they actually told Salamandra that she had alcohol poisoning, but that a doctor had been called and was heading their way.
So, yeah, that again stands out as pretty sketchy to me because they're saying that she's sick from drinking too much, but they're taking her to a doctor or calling a doctor to her. That sounds like they know there's more going on here.
So, Salamandra actually at this point requested that Shanquella be taken to a hospital, and they told her that Shanquella's insurance wouldn't be accepted there and that $5,000 in cash was required to treat her.
That's sketchy as hell.
So the doctor, who is Dr. Carolina Beatriz Ornelas Gutierrez, arrived within an hour of when the group called her. And she would later report that Shanquella had stable vital signs at that point, but was severely dehydrated and not communicative and very disoriented.
Okay, and so far that sounds like it could be consistent with, a heavy night of, seriously heavy drinking.
Yes, and that's exactly what the group blamed it on. They told the doctor that Shanquella had been drinking too much the night before, and this was a result of that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still very suspicious of this group, but that would make sense that she would be super dehydrated, disoriented, and not communicative, iffy, but at least the dehydration is consistent.
Well, and let me tell you, none of their behavior after this point will make you any less suspicious. So the doctor wanted to bring Shanquella to the hospital, but her friend still insisted that she be treated at the vacation house.
Yeah, you weren't kidding. That's suspicious.
But when the doctor tried to administer an IV, Shanquella began to have a seizure. At around 4:49 p.m., the doctor wasn't registering a pulse, and her and one of Shanquella's friends began administering CPR at that point. Paramedics were finally called, and after numerous attempts to save her, Shanquella was pronounced dead at 5:57 p.m. She had died from cardiac arrest, and this was one day after she arrived in Mexico.
I mean, that's so sad and so bizarre. I have a lot of outstanding questions about this that I'm sure you're about to answer, but really, really sad.
So the Los Cabos Municipal Police were contacted, and 2 police officers show up. And the doctor tells them her story of what happened after she arrived, and how Shanquella was not doing well, and that her friends didn't want her to go to the hospital, and that it seemed to be from alcohol poisoning, and, Shanquella's symptoms could be attributed to being intoxicated.
And that all sounds plausible, and I imagine these police probably don't have too much to be suspicious of right now.
Well, police actually do contact the General Prosecutor's Office in Baja California Sur, and They tell him that there is a dead foreign citizen, and they are directed by State Attorney Julio Daniel to file the reports and all of the investigation forms. And after speaking with the group that traveled with Shanquella and talking to the doctor, they conclude that Shanquella died of alcohol poisoning. And police did not notice any internal or external injuries to Shanquella's body, according to their reports. Just keep that in mind.
Okay, so, I mean, up to this point still, everything seems plausible. The friends have been sketchy, but it seems like police are on the same track.
Shanquella's parents are in complete disbelief when they learn that their daughter died one day after starting her vacation. And the story just wasn't adding up to them.
And that makes 3 of us. This story does not make sense.
Then, on November 5th, 2022, the death certificate was released, and the cause of death was listed as severe spinal cord injury and atlas luxation, which is a condition in which instability or excessive movement is present between the first and two vertebrae within the neck. It's a condition that can be hereditary or a result of a traumatic injury.
I was going to say, that sounds like almost being shaken to death or something to that effect, but I guess hereditary is an option too. That's odd. I've never heard of that.
It's also revealed that Shanquella would have died within 15 minutes of this injury.
Okay, that's really weird.
And get this, alcohol poisoning nor cardiac arrest were mentioned in this report.
That is really, really troubling and really odd.
Salamandra soon began to suspect that all was not what it seemed, because the people that Shanquella had traveled with had returned home, and they each had a different story about what happened.
Somehow I'm not shocked by that, because everything about this is shady as hell.
So there were a bunch of inconsistencies in regards to who actually had found Shanquella, whether it was a maid or someone in the group. There were different versions of where Shanquella was found and who had actually been the one to call the doctor. And the story that the group had told Salamandra about the hospital requiring $5,000 in cash also turned out to be false.
So pretty much everything these kids have said up to this point is a lie.
Yes. And her parents, after listening to all this, were told a horrifying story. A member of the group told them that Shanquella had been jumped by a woman in the group and beaten.
Had been jumped by a woman in the group, one of the people traveling with them?
Yes, one of her so-called friends.
Oh my gosh, that's, wow, big change of pace.
And this would make a lot of sense because it explained some of the other injuries that Shanquella sustained.
I was under the impression Shanquella didn't have any other visible injuries.
Oh, and that's probably because that's what the police, the two officers, had initially put in their report. Shanquella, however, had signs of trauma, including a knot on her head, a bruised face, busted lip, and swollen eye.
So, did the police just lie? And if so, why?
Well, we're going to get to that. But Shanquella's family, obviously with all of this, wanted answers, and they wanted to know, rightfully what had happened to Shanquella. And luckily, this story started to get a lot of attention. People wanted to know what happened to the ambitious American woman while she was on vacation with her friends. On November 15th, 2022, a video was uploaded to Twitter. And this video is horrifying. In it, a naked woman is being beaten by another woman. Shanquella's family identified her as being the woman being hit, and the other woman was identified as Dejanay Jackson.
Oh my gosh.
Shanquella is punched numerous times in the head, face, back of her neck, and back of her knees, and then she is slung to the ground. You hear someone, a man's voice, say, "Quella, can you at least fight back?" And Shanquella responds with, "No."
This is horrifying. This is a disgusting set of facts.
Oh yeah, and you might be wondering where her good friend Khalil is. Well, he's seen in the video just standing there watching. No one tries to intervene. No one tries to help Shanquella. Instead, they chose to take out their cell phones, and rather than using it to call for help, they just simply press record. And it was tough to watch, and it just breaks my heart for her family. The whole thing is absolutely disgusting. On November 16th, the U.S. Department of State released a statement indicating they were aware of this incident. So at this point, following the release of the video, Mexico decided to reopen their investigation into Shanquella's death.
Probably a smart decision.
Oh, yes. And according to a Mexican newspaper, authorities were looking into the actions of the doctor who, quote unquote, treated Shanquella. They also were looking into the two reporting police officers because they wondered the same thing. Why did they not notice any other abrasions or injuries? And also the investigating state attorney. And they were looking to see whether their actions amounted to negligence, official misconduct, and a dereliction of their duties.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say whatever happened there was more than negligence or misconduct or dereliction of duty. This sounds like an outright crime.
So on November 18th, 2022, the FBI opened their own investigation into the events leading up to Shanquella's death. I mean, they had a video now. But on April 12th, 2023, federal authorities stated that they will not be pursuing federal charges at this point in Shanquella's death.
Have we heard anything from Mexican authorities as far as the reopened investigation?
Well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the U.S. Attorney's offices in the Western District of North Carolina stated that they concluded that federal charges cannot be pursued. As in every case under consideration for federal prosecution, they continued, the government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a federal crime was committed. And based on the results of the autopsy and after careful deliberation and review of the investigation materials by both U.S. attorneys' offices, federal prosecutors informed Ms. Robinson's family that the available evidence does not support federal prosecution.
And that's garbage. I can't even begin to understand that line of thinking because that's just nonsensical. They have a video.
It's wild. It's absurd. Sue Ann Robinson, an attorney representing the Robinson family, but no actual relation to Shanquella, stated that while we're disappointed, we're not deterred. FBI officials told the family's lawyers that there was swelling detected on Shanquella's brain, but that the cause of death could still not be determined because this autopsy did not reveal spinal cord injury.
So what's happening with these Mexican reports?
I don't know. I do know that this autopsy happened after she was embalmed. I don't know. It's just all been, so convoluted. I mean, the family believes that this is a direct result of the U.S. government not investigating sooner.
And I don't disagree with them.
Sue Ann states, there's no reason why a black woman should go on vacation with her friends, be returned to her family in a box, and nothing be done for 5 months. It's ridiculous.
It is absolutely disgusting and makes no sense. So just out of curiosity, and I'm sure I'm not the only one wondering this, would the U.S. even have the ability to prosecute these people for a crime they committed somewhere else?
Yes, so the U.S. can exercise jurisdiction over American citizens who commit crimes abroad if there is a sufficient nexus to the U.S., such as if the victim, in this case, is a U.S. citizen.
So these are U.S. citizens who committed a crime against another U.S. citizen in another country, so we would have jurisdiction.
Exactly. So Mexico did file an arrest warrant, but it has not led to an actual arrest at this point. The Attorney General for Baja California Sur, Daniel de la Rosa, told reporters that Shanquella's death resulted from direct aggression and that an arrest warrant would be issued for femicide. And femicide is the intentional killing of a woman with a gender-related motivation. The suspect was not identified, but they did confirm she was a U.S. citizen and a friend of Shanquella's.
Do we know anything about why they think this was a gender-motivated crime?
No. And that is unfortunately where we are today with this case. The Robinson family has lost their daughter. There is a video of her being savagely beaten, And the U.S. at this point is failing to prosecute anyone for her death. It's just tragic all around.
And so just to be clear, this was Wednesday that the U.S. said they are not going to bring federal charges for this, right?
Yes, this just happened, and it's just devastating. It's quite shocking. I did not expect that.
Well, and I'm going to say, and you can certainly weigh in on this too, as former prosecutors, both of us, we work with the standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Even in defense work, we've worked with the standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And I've seen cases with a lot less than video of people beating someone to death that have gone to trial or even pled out ahead of time. So I don't know what federal prosecutors are talking about here, but I don't see it.
So in the video, it's very clear that she's in, it's pretty evident that where she is. So the video obviously happened on that vacation. And then, she was only there a day, so when it happened is pretty easy to ascertain. And then, and she died shortly after that beating. I don't know what they're waiting on. I'm assuming they'd like to have some clear indication of the cause of death. But I agree. This case, this is a lot of evidence to me, and it makes it that much more frustrating.
Well, and I can understand wanting to wait for a cause of death and the fact that their autopsy doesn't show the same neck injury, but we have a video that shows a very real, very aggressive crime taking place, and she's dead the next day. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to make the connection there.
No, and the thing is, people put witness testimony, they put witnesses on the stand and they give testimony, and that these people lie, right? We know people lie. People aren't always upfront. But you know what doesn't lie? Videos. And in this case, we have video evidence.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that this is something that the U.S. is not moving forward on. I guess I sincerely hope that they come to a different conclusion or take another look at this, because this seems wrong. Yes,
and they did say that at this point they're not pursuing federal charges. Obviously, if anybody has information, we encourage you to let authorities know. I would love to see this situation change.
And I guess even if the U.S. doesn't do anything, maybe Mexico will. So hopefully one of these two national governments will take it upon themselves to hold someone accountable for murdering this girl.
Yes, and I don't know how Wednesday's, how their decision, how the U.S.'s decision will affect the warrant from Mexico. I don't know. We'll have to see what comes out of that.
Well, and I'm also, I don't want to forget as we finish up here about the doctor and the police in Mexico. What happened there?
The thing is, and we didn't really touch on this too much, but so the autopsy performed in Mexico indicated that she would have died 15 minutes after the injury, but the doctor, we know, was there after that. So that seems, if that's true, if the autopsy is true, then obviously Shanquella would not have been alive when the doctor arrived. And then I think that is something to look into. And if that's the case, I think there were probably other things going on at the scene that the cops would have and surely should have zeroed in on.
Absolutely. I think there's no way that isn't important to this case.
If you would like to help, the Robinson family has set up a GoFundMe account, which we will provide a link for. And Shanquella Robinson, just remember, she was just 25 years old. She had traveled to a foreign country on vacation and died in a house with her so-called friends.
So how did Lacey do today?
She did pretty good. she's a little antsy. I think she's definitely ready for a walk, but we'll go do that now since she was fairly well behaved.
She was. And if you liked today's episode, please remember to leave us a review, give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you next Monday.